Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 4 of our WWF 1992 save in TEW IX. This is Superstars of Wrestling for April 14th, 1992. The fallout from WrestleMania 8 continues. And as we said, it's going to be a little bit of a slow build here when it comes to just, how we have to navigate the summer months and all that, because it's a long way until we get to SummerSlam in August. And so things may feel like they're going a little bit slow at the start, but the action will start to pick up again probably as soon as next week. This is kind of another one of those setup episodes, I think, but as you'll see on the next episode, things really start to pick up storyline-wise. And also, just forgive my voice. I know it doesn't sound great. The allergies are back again. And so, it just seems like under the weather anytime these seasons starts to change and all that. So, yes, I appreciate you guys being patient. And again, hopefully the voice doesn't sound too bad. But let's jump into it. We start with our hosts. And remember, we did make a slight change here, doing Vince and Bobby the Brain Heenan as our commentary team, just because they had a little bit more experience than the previous team of Vince and Lord Alfred Hayes. And so we just want to get a little bit more of that. We're still going to get a penalty because they don't have a lot of high experience here with Vince and the Brain, but still, it was a little bit better than the previous option. So we start things off, and it is Vince revealing to Bobby the Brain Heenan that Hulk Hogan, he has heard, is close to being cleared to return to action here in the WWF. Of course, he was taken out several months ago. You'd have to go all the way back to our TEW 2020 save to follow that. But as we've explained, he was taken out as the number 2 entrant in the Royal Rumble several months ago, never made it into the match, and now we've been kind of continuing this search. Jack Tunney's investigation. Our president has been trying to figure out who did this. We still have no answers, but Vince says that Hogan is close to being cleared to return, and that he expects whoever was responsible for this attack on the Hulkster will have a lot to pay for. So, and that kind of leads to, Bobby Heenan, as you would expect, not having a very, normal response. Heenan loses it here. He's like, what? Are you kidding me? I thought this guy was never coming back. You're telling me that the Nature Boy Ric Flair, the real world champion, wins the title and all of a sudden Hogan is going to stick his nose into our business again? And so Heenan's just losing it here, and Vince Vince is doing his laugh and all this stuff about how Flair's going to have a lot to worry about whenever Hulk returns, even though it has been proven that Flair was not responsible for the attack on Hogan at the Rumble. And so that's kind of where we are. Heenan's not too happy about this news. What could that mean? We'll find out. All right, 67 here to start things off. Then we get to our first match. It's Shawn Michaels getting the win over Mario Mancini, 502. Sweet chin music here is the finish. Shawn, 65 on the in-ring performance. We'll take that. Just kind of how it works. This is, I know it cooled the crowd a little bit. It should pick back up, but we're still kind of trying to stick to at least some of the format. Not every match is going to be this way with, star versus jobber, but we're going to throw some of those in there just based on how we like to do this. So Michaels gets the win. Remember on the last episode, Shawn made it clear that he is looking for gold and brought up that could mean Bret Hart, the Intercontinental Champion. That could mean Ric Flair, the WWF Champion. But he's coming for gold, is what Michaels said after his win at WrestleMania 8. 42 again for this one. All right, then we get highlights of Sid's rampage after his match last week on Superstars. Remember, it was Sid getting the win over the Repo Man, and after the match, Sid was just, very frustrated, visibly. He threw a few chairs into the ring. Very uncharacteristic here, 1992. But Sid threw a few chairs into the ring, and then we get a little bit more of the replay of Sid going to the back and, throwing some things on his way back, pushing some equipment out of the way before he heads back into the, the curtain there to go to the back in the locker room. So, yeah, kind of just maybe showcasing Sid maybe at a breaking point here. He did lose to The Undertaker at WrestleMania 8. And so, just more highlights of Sid kind of going on a bit of a tirade here, 66 for this one. All right, next week, we went ahead and did this up front because I knew this was going to cool the crowd off a little bit. Probably could have added someone else in there because there is going to be someone else in action that would have helped this rating a little bit that has much higher popularity than these four. But still, we're going to make it just kind of noted here that LOD, our WWF Tag Team Champions, Papa Shango, who made in our save his debut by beating Jimmy Snuka in Snuka's final match, final WrestleMania match. We're going to keep using that terminology until I decide maybe I want to use Snuka again to leech some popularity off of him, perhaps. And then Tatanka will also be in action next week. So that's some of your featured superstars who will be in action here on Superstars coming up next week. But we're far from done on this episode. I just want to get this out of the way early because I knew the segment would not do great. So cooling the crowd a little bit here, 41. All right, here we go. Now we're going to pick it up a little bit with the Bushwhackers and the Orient Express. As it is the Bushwhackers getting the win over the Orient Express. Haven't seen Luke and Butch here on our save very much, even if you go back to the TEW 2020 days. But they get the win here. Luke pins Kato with a battering ram. And I wish I could say Kato like Lord Halford Hayes used to do, but I'm not quite that skilled. But yeah, it is the Bushwhackers getting the win over the Orient Express here. We see that Fuji doesn't have good chemistry with Kato himself. So, I mean, I guess he also did some good work at ringside. So it's like you have to, I suppose, pick and choose here which one you want to go with. But yeah, for now, this is just kind of a tag team match to get both of these two back into the rotation a little bit. Not a lot much more than that. Like I said, this is kind of another setup episode. We're coming out of WrestleMania. We need to get a few people back into the rotation, kind of set up some big summer stuff. So it's kind of where we are here right now. 53 for this one. All right. Things should start to pick up a little bit from here because it is Ted DiBiase and IRS who are with Mean Gene Okerlund. And clearly, it's Gene talking to DiBiase and sort of, kind of your pre-taped interview here where DiBiase is visibly frustrated how things went for IRS at WrestleMania 8, losing the match to Bret Hart. The Intercontinental Championship was on the line. And the whole story, of course, has continued to be that DiBiase has said that he will, continue to prove that money can buy anything. He's been very vague as to what that means, but he has said that numerous times since we started our save. And now DiBiase, looking over at IRS, clearly disappointed in losing to Bret Hart. And DiBiase just basically making the statement that he's going to have to do it himself. And now he's going to have to, make some decisions and do things himself now, perhaps, until he gets exactly what he wants. So that's what DiBiase has to say. It is worth noting that Jimmy Hart is here with Ted DiBiase and IRS. And that's important because next we see the natural disasters, earthquake and typhoon, who are not happy with Jimmy Hart because, remember, one of the starting storylines we had was that there was a little bit of tension between these two teams. So Jimmy, of course, owns the contractual services of both of these teams. And so he's kind of gone back and forth a little bit. So Earthquake and Typhoon walk in here, and Earthquake's a little pissed off, asking Jimmy where he's at. They were trying to, get a match coming up, and Jimmy basically wasn't there to get the match for him. Kind of pushing that sort of dynamic, right? That Jimmy is spending much more of his time right now with DiBiase and IRS and the disasters coming off of, the loss they had to the Legion of Doom at WrestleMania. So that is kind of the story here, is that they're trying to get back into the WWF Tag Team title picture, but yet their manager isn't out there working for them to get them a match. And we know there's been tension between Earthquake and Typhoon. These guys are frustrated. Typhoon eliminated the Earthquake from the Royal Rumble. And so a lot of back and forth here, a little arguing between these two. And basically it's the disasters wanting Jimmy to make his choice here as to which team he's going to fully support. So kind of your ultimatum a bit here from the natural disasters. We'll see if this goes anywhere. 63 here for this one. All right, now we get to The Undertaker in action, as we said last week. And it is The Undertaker defeating Nikolai Volkoff in 6:39. The chokeslam does it here. 64 for this one. Not going to be a highly rated show, but that's okay. It'll get better. I will explain something in a second because I do think our main event should do pretty well, but we'll see how it goes. A lot of bonuses here for The Undertaker and Paul Bearer, of course. Undertaker's still the flavor of the month. 74 for the in-ring performance. Nikolai off his game a little bit. We could have gotten close to a 70 maybe, had that not been the case. But I forgot to pull this up on some of the others. But yeah, you can kind of see, Nikolai may not have been the best choice for the opponent. But like I said, trying not to trying to save some of the bigger matches. I don't want to just blow through some of these, although we can do kind of the way we did on the last iteration in TEW 2020, where we kind of showed you highlights of, house show matches and that kind of stuff. But this is really more about pushing, the dominance of The Undertaker right now, coming off that win against Sid at WrestleMania, and not a lot more than that. Again, this is kind of just teasing things to come, and for now, The Undertaker gets another win. No surprise here over Nikolai Volkoff. All right, now, finally, we get a rating here. Pick some things up, although the crowd heat's still a little unclear. 82 here for this segment. Now, as we have this coming out of it, it is Vince McMahon and, of course, Bobby Heenan. They're on the little stage that, of course, you're used to seeing on these particular weekly shows back in the day. And they welcome in the Macho Man, Randy Savage. Because, of course, last week we saw the Coliseum home video exclusive with Savage, walking out of the arena. We remember kind of the closing visual at WrestleMania with Savage just sitting there with, his head in his hands, looking over at Elizabeth, all of these things. And so, not much to say for Savage coming out of WrestleMania 8, although we could tell a very disappointing loss to Ric Flair in the main event for the vacant WWF Championship. And so, Vince welcomes Savage, and, he just says, Randy, look, everyone wants to know. We've all seen, your response to losing to Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8 a couple weeks ago, and the fans just want to know, what's next for the Macho Man, Randy Savage. And so, Savage is there, Elizabeth's with him, and you can see Savage just kind of looking around. He's just looking around at the fans. He's looking around seemingly, a little paranoid maybe about maybe someone else that's around. And Savage just, continues to look at Elizabeth here as he's pondering this question from Vince McMahon. And, that's when Savage just says, Vince, for the first time, I'm speechless. And he just says, I don't know what's next. I don't know. And then that's when Vince brings up, well, we know you're coming off of the loss to Ric Flair for the WWF Championship. And you can see Savage just kind of, that hits him a little bit. We know everything you've been through with Jake the Snake Roberts. And that's when Savage just kind of gets a little bit more irked here as he's looking over at Elizabeth. He's looking around. And Vince just kind of continues to go on here. And Savage just says, that's enough. He just says, I don't know what's next. Come on, Elizabeth. I don't know. And so, Randy Savage, not sure perhaps what's next here, but you can tell sort of a very shaken Macho Man right now coming out of the loss to Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8. So, there's a setup, again, for something that is to come, but 82 here for this segment. All right, now this is what we were looking for right here. This is why we put this in the main event spot. An 80 for this match. It is Bret the Hitman Hart getting the win over Skinner in 7:38. Bret with an 87 for his in-ring performance, so that's notable. And, I kind of went back and forth. I'm like, do we put The Undertaker and Nikolai in there? Taker's the bigger star, but I just had a feeling Bret was going to get us the better match. And we did make the change. It was suggested in the comments, and we did this on the last TEW 2020 say. We just forgot to do it for this one when we did the restart. But we changed the focus to the main event spotlight, and we did sort of the tight focus for the angles. So, completely forgot to set that up the way we did last time. So, I think that will help a little bit. I think we're going to still get knocked probably for some storyline development stuff, but this will help. Is being able to kind of get back to, kind of slotting the main event the way we need to get the best ratings out of this. But Bret getting the win over this one. Again, Bret's been red hot in our series, as we know, coming off the win against IRS at WrestleMania 8, and now, setting himself up. Something else here as we move forward, so, kind of looking at everything here. I mean, yeah, not a lot. Short match length. We got capped here, so we could have made this longer, but, yeah, it's Superstars. We're not going to go 20 minutes here. And so, yeah, pretty, still getting the low experience on the commentary, as we've noted, so, that's worth mentioning. But great main event, and we'll absolutely take this. Should help our rating a little bit coming out of this one. All right, here's our last segment of Superstars this week. It is, Bobby Heenan throwing us to the video here, and you can just imagine the great sort of footage we have in 1992 of the Nature Boy Ric Flair. And it's your very cheesy early 90s beach scene here, where it is Ric Flair on the beach. You know, he's got some women there ready to go to Space Mountain, and all kinds of stuff, right? So Flair's celebrating on the beach. He's having himself some beverages. He's got women on each arm, and it's just Ric Flair with the WWF Championship around his waist. Hopefully, he's got something else on underneath there. But yeah, it's just kind of the visual of Flair sitting here celebrating just as he said he was going to last week in our Coliseum home video exclusive interview with him. Flair saying that he was going to celebrate. He wasn't worried about the past, present, or the future. And, we kind of, set it up earlier about the tease of Hogan being cleared to return. And this kind of ties into that, even though, we're not acting like these two sort of exist where Flair has watched the show earlier or anything. This is the early 90s. But Flair just pointing out that, look at him right now. Look at the Nature Boy sitting on the beach, the WWF Championship around his waist. He's got the women on his arms. And, of course, you can go into the styling and profiling, all that stuff. And Flair just saying he's not worried about anything except the present. And so just pointing out, how good the present looks for the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. So 88 for this one. Just sort of your celebratory moment here for Ric Flair as he's on vacation, enjoying himself and making it clear he's not worried about anything but the present. All right. That's how we wrap up this show. 77 here for this one. We increased in one region. Yeah, I had a feeling we'd still get this note. We didn't really get any dramatic stakes involved because we didn't really have much in terms of, connecting two people together storyline-wise, which, usually we will do a better job of that. But for now, again, we're just kind of getting some things ready for the summer. So, yeah, it's okay. Well, I'm fine with this. We may take a little bit of a hit on some of these early shows, but the storylines are starting to come together. But there you go. All right, let's get to the financial report. $225,000 on this one. We'll take that for sure. Popularity recap. Yeah, Southern England. We are growing popular there. Perhaps Ric Flair helped us there with that one, but I don't know. Maybe there were someone else on the show, perhaps. That maybe helped us out with that one. But, all right, let's see what else we need to get to before we wrap up. All right, so that was Superstars of Wrestling. Positive show. We didn't strike gold on that one. There's a lot going on over here in the articles. Terry Gordy, a bruised kidney, so he's out for a few weeks. Arn Anderson is going to try to expand his working environment. Matt Bourne, same way. Let's see. Who else? Ricky Morton, also heading abroad here. Antonio Inoki is now the chief enforcer in New Japan. All right. Let's see what else we've got here. Got a new WCW chief enforcer. Oh, well, Ron Simmons. No one messing with that guy. Rick Rude has been demoted from his position as one of the locker room leaders. Well, Rick, let me tell you, or you will not be demoted. If you come back to the WWF, I would not demote you. Unfortunately, I don't think Rick's contract will allow that at the moment. I'd love to get Rick Rude back, but I don't think his contract is kind of in that position right now for that to happen. Vader also looking abroad. Well, that shouldn't be a surprise. Let's see if there's anything else here to look at. No, not anything else of note. So, all right. Let's get... Oh, boy. I just realized it was there. We have a decision to make. I'm fairly certain we have not maybe tried to hire anyone. I could be wrong about that, so maybe I should look at this before I show this to you guys because I don't remember actually reaching out to hire anyone. Maybe I did, though. It's been a week or so since I pulled this up, but no, of course not. It's Shawn Michaels because anytime we start to push some of these rising stars, last week it was the British Bulldog, and what did we do? We ended up fining the guy for, I think, using painkillers, and everybody got pissed off. Bret Hart got pissed off, Owen Hart, Jim Neidhart, everyone got pissed at us. And so we did, by the way, give Bret a nice little bonus before his big match against Skinner. So that got him back to normal morale. But let's see what's going on with Shawn now. I assume it's going to be something similar. Yep, soft drug user by the WWF. Luckily, no matter what we do to Shawn here, I don't think he has a group of people that are going to get pissed off at us. What should we do with Shawn? Now, what would Vince do with Shawn in 1992? Probably give him a slap on the wrist, and a very slight slap at that. You know, our backstage is already a bit of a mess. Michaels is known as a troublemaker personality. If we do look at our discipline, oh, that's right. I forgot why I was thinking it showed everyone, but it only shows Shawn. But all right, we're gonna start slow here with Shawn. All right, because we know, come on, Shawn may go off the rails here if we get this wrong. So, I mean, do we really think it's going to improve his behavior? I don't. So maybe we should be very stern with Shawn. Okay, so even being stern with Shawn has a small negative impact upon him. So, I mean, this is going to be fun, this locker room, I tell you, this time of the year with these groups. So, all right, Vader's available to work in a new game area. That's fine. Drug testing fees, maybe the MVP of the save so far. Jimmy Hart, as we said, still going on tour, so maybe you can see what we're working with in terms of building that up with Jimmy and the Natural Disasters and Money Inc. So, all right, there you go, guys. That was Superstars of Wrestling. Always appreciate you watching. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Let me know what you thought of the show. And like I said, we're going to kind of crank back up these other things also. I know it's been a little over a week and a half or so since the WWF Invasion. Last one we did there, but that's coming. I said that's the one that takes the longest to book, which makes sense, right? I mean, we have 20-plus segments on every show. It just takes a little longer these days. Real life, family obligations, all that kind of stuff. It just, it takes a little bit longer to book those shows than it used to. So, but we still chuck along there with that. And also going to try to get back into the C-Verse stuff. I know we've got the local to global save. You guys are pushing for a C-Verse save as well, kind of a normal straight-up one like we did with TCW in 2020. So I'm still looking at the company options there. I probably won't go back to TC. If I went back to TCW, I'd do it just going back to 2020, and we just continue it from there. I would not start a new TCW save, TW9. Just not going to happen. I'd rather just continue sort of the history that we built in 2020, but we'll see if there's another company that catches my eye. I'm still looking there on that. So, all right, appreciate you guys as always. Thanks for your patience again, whether it's the voice, whether it's just the saves not being as frequent as they used to. It is what it is. I'm doing my best here. So, I appreciate you guys, and on the next episode of our WWF 1992 save, the action will start to pick up a bit. I promise it'll be Superstars of Wrestling.